Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, hey, welcome into the program. So today on the show we have computer and technology news. We have a ton of different articles, everything from a really important milestone that they have reached with laser powered fusion, and we've covered fusion here on the show before, but if you are new to it, then don't worry, we will break that down as best we can. It's simple and also probably way over my head at the same time. We have that. We have everything from news about cryptocurrency. We have news about actually a 9-to-5 Mac writer paying a hacker or someone who got their hands on a confidential stolen Apple iPhone prototype, which our feelings on that. Every time one of these stolen iPhones, quote unquote, makes it out into the world, kind of makes me feel like it's just a nice little press release. We have that. We have more Mastercard to end the magnetic strip cards altogether. Old technology being phased out. But yeah, we have all that and more here on Computer America. Just stay tuned. So everyone, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, everything you need to know about the program. You can find it right there. Highly encourage that you do that. And of course, you can also find the podcast there. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then the podcast is the next best place to do so. Also be sure to check out social media, follow for contest updates, and all that good stuff. That should be just about everything that we need to go over. Now, I think it's time for Computer and Technology News, brought to you by Computer America. So I think that for our first story, tons of different ones that we can have here. How about a little bit of an update? So last time we did news, we talked about the fact that the Federal Trade Commission, I believe it was the FTC, was about to start looking into Tesla and Autopilot and all the claims that have to go with self-driving cars, and the fact that, was this technology rolled out too early? And it's kind of funny, I actually remember this... conversation happening way at the beginning, because when you start to roll out incremental changes and then you say, oh, this is this is not fully self-driving, people have to interact with it, people have to pay attention to it. One of the main concerns was the fact that if you give people an inch, they'll take a mile. And what I mean by that is that if you give people most of the tools to keep their eyes, to allow them to let their eyes off the road and their hands off the wheel, that will be just enough leeway for people to kind of completely take their eyes off the road and completely stop paying attention. So there were advocates, and I do not think this way, but there were advocates for people who would There were advocates for people who said that self-driving should be held off from consumers completely until it is ready to go in its final phase. Stage 4, whatever. Type 4 auto driving or self-driving cars, where it's like level 4. I think it's called level. Anyways, level 4, which is the dream. You get in, you tell the car where you want to go, and you never touch a brake, you never touch a gas pedal, you never touch the steering wheel. It just drives you to where you want to go. Some people are saying that, that is the answer to all of it, and putting anything in the middle, which is what Autopilot and Tesla have done, is dangerous. People are going to hurt themselves with this. I did not agree with that, and even though the government the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is now investigating 17 different incidents, with 11 of them, I should say 11 crashes, 17 people injured in those accidents, a couple of them killed, and 6, 7, 8 years later, they are now looking into this technology. Can't say that the government is a well-oiled machine, but hey, the gears are turning. So let's go ahead and talk about the update, because now the government has officially said that they are going to look into this officially, and that's the update. It's not just calls for it, now it is actually going to happen. The U.S. opens official investigation into self-driving technology. Now, they said that the agency was primarily concerned with an apparent inability of Tesla vehicles to cope with vehicles stopped in the road, specifically emergency vehicles attending an incident. Among the list of cases was one where a Tesla plowed into the rear of a parked fire engine attending an accident, and another in which a parked police car was struck. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration said it was opening its preliminary investigation into the technologies and methods used to monitor, assist, and enforce the driver's engagement while using Autopilot. It said that in the 11 crashes that prompted the investigation, either Autopilot or a system called Traffic Aware Cruise Control had been active just prior, quote unquote, to the incidents. And of course, just prior could mean that, seconds from disaster, the system kicked off, or maybe someone was trying to react to the fact that, if you're going down a highway going 60, 65, 70 miles an hour, and then the car doesn't tell you until the last possible second, and you're not really paying attention, then it could kick it off, and then of course you have to figure out how to stop going 70 in a matter of 100 feet, which is not easy to do. Now, the assistive technology allows cars to automatically steer, accelerate, and brake, but it has come under fire for being misleading, as it does not automatically drive the car, and drivers are required to maintain control and attention at all times. Now, Tesla has marketed the feature as an autopilot and promises full self-driving, which is now available to some users in a beta version. So there's a couple of caveats here. Now, first one, the false advertising saying, it's autopilot. That might lead some people to believe that you don't have to drive it. It will do it itself. It is on autopilot. But and I'm not the most versed when it comes to planes and that whole thing, and planes and pilots. But I assume that even when the plane is on autopilot, which that might be where people kind of get the idea from, pilots are still trained that if one goes to the restroom, if one has to step away from the controls, the co-pilot takes over, and they may not have to actively touch it or steer the plane or anything like that, but they still have to stay aware and vigilant, ready to take control of the plane. So that, if I was starting to build a defense for Tesla, because they're going to have to answer, these questions in court, I would start that by saying that, autopilot to be compared to, the autopilot in airplanes, where again, it can do most of the things by itself, but there's always someone ready to take control, and that's what people should be doing. But people, everyday people who are not pilots, I can totally see how they can see the word autopilot and think, oh, I don't have to touch this at all. It is going to drive automatically. Not so much the case. In a statement, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said that no commercially available motor vehicle today are capable of driving themselves. Every available vehicle requires a human driver to be in control at all times, which is true. In control, ready to take control, and if the car is kind of keeping its own lane and maintaining its speed and things like that. Someone has to be ready to take over immediately. Now, the investigation supporting documents do, however, note the challenging circumstances involved in many of the collisions, saying that most incidents took place after dark, and the crash scenes encountered included scene control measures such as first responders' vehicle lights, flares, and illuminated arrow board and road cones, it reads. It comes days ahead of an event to showcase the car company's software, and Elon Musk had previously announced the 19th of August as Tesla AI Day, which he said would showcase the progress of the firm's artificial intelligence system with a view to recruiting AI experts to the firm. So there you go. And I mean, yeah, that's like tomorrow that we're going to hear more about Tesla Autopilot. I truly do believe the more data that is sent to Tesla through their cars all over the country, their system will get better and better. And I'm sure that over the past 8 years, it has, gotten infinitely better at what it is supposed to do. It is no longer just lane, like stay in your lane, control your speed, auto brake. No, it has probably gone way beyond that. But is it completely there? Not really. The numbers that I would point to are the fact that there are 11 incidents with, probably hundreds of thousands of cars. They mentioned 735,000 vehicles. 765,000 Tesla cars were made since 2014 with these capabilities. Out of 765,000 Tesla vehicles, each one driving thousands or tens of thousands of miles by now. And the people who had access to this technology, and there were only 11 incidents. Can it get better? Absolutely. Is it getting better all the time? Absolutely. When you compare the numbers to texting while driving or drunk driving, I still think that the self-driving, quote unquote, autopilot system is better than a lot of other circumstances. But should we say, oh, it's not as bad as X, so we shouldn't really worry about it? No, deal with both at the same time. We can do both. I do think that, and this is just really the nature of Tesla. I mean, that's how Tesla was able to even make it as a company, where that they were able to oversell products, get people to purchase them, and then go back and try to make it work. That was kind of always their thing. They overpromised battery life, they overpromised range, they overpromised speed, and then in the next few iterations, they were able to actually deliver on those promises. So by saying that, it's completely autopilot, it's self-driving, that whole thing, they had to include it for the marketing of their cars, and it really does go to show that Tesla's having this AI day where, the self-driving AI autopilot day, it shows how crucial this is to their business, because everyone knows Tesla, Mercedes, Ford, every car company out there has some form of either driver assist programs or features, or they are, and actually I can guarantee they themselves are working on self-driving car technology. It is a huge pile of money that whoever really nails self-driving vehicles first, it stands to make a lot of revenue. And Tesla right now seems to be the leader in that area. Can it get better? Absolutely. Is it important for the company? Yes. Are they going to come back and say, well, it's not really autopilot, it's just kind of mostly self-driving, but you still have to be... No, they're not going to mitigate it. They are going to continue to push autopilot to their customers. It's yeah, so this is what we, this is why we have oversight. This is why we have these these organizations in place that kind of keep Tesla in check, because they can promise you the world. It's just they have to be held accountable for what they try to push to consumers. So there you go. That was story number one, and you bet we're going to be paying attention to tomorrow when Tesla unveils their latest self-driving car technology. Looking forward to it, honestly. I'm completely a fan. Don't want people to get the idea that it's not something that I want. I would love it. It's just, implement it when the time is right. And people, probably more so than Tesla, people need to be aware of what they're actually purchasing. Now, there's the first story. Let's go ahead and talk about the next one. And how about, man, we have so many to pick from. I wanted to see if this was hyperbole, if people were getting a little bit too touchy about their favorite browsers. So when you get a new operating system, generally, and if you're, odds are you're buying Microsoft. Most people are Windows users. So they're saying in Windows 11, it may be a little bit harder to switch the default browser in the next generation of the Windows operating system. And they're saying that Microsoft's upcoming release of Windows 11 will make it even harder to switch default browsers and ignores browser defaults in new areas of the operating system. I mean, how big of a deal is this really? That's my question going into this. Saying that while Microsoft is making many positive changes to the Windows 11 UI, the default apps experience is a step back, and browser competitors like Mozilla, Opera, and Vivaldi are concerned. I've actually never really even tried Vivaldi. What do I know about that company? Italian composer. Don't really know much about them, but there you go. Looks pretty modern. Looks pretty mobile-centric, though, at the same time. And very Mac-esque. So, okay, now, Windows 11, Microsoft has changed the way that you set default apps. Like Windows 10, there's a prompt that when you install a new browser and open a web link for the first time, it's the only opportunity to easily switch browsers, saying that unless you tick always use this app, which you can see there, if you're watching the video portion, it's the classic prompt pops up, saying that keep using the default, and of course the by default is Microsoft's own Edge browser, and then they have other options there that if you don't have Chrome installed, or if you don't have Mozilla Firefox installed, if you don't have your preferred browser installed the first time, it won't be an option there. So that's something to think about. And they mentioned that unless you tick always use this app, the default will never be changed. It's incredibly easy to forget to toggle the always use this app option, and simply launch the browser that you want from this prompt and never see the default choice again when you click web links. Saying that if you do forget to set your default browser at launch, the experience for switching defaults is now very confusing compared to Windows 10. Chrome and many other rival browsers will often prompt users to set them as the default, and will throw Windows users into the default apps part of settings to enable this, which that's this next screenshot here. Microsoft has changed the way that apps are designed in Windows 11, which means that you now have to set the defaults by file or link type instead of a single switch. In the case of Chrome, that means changing the default type for HTML, PDF, SHTML, SVG, WebP, XHT, essentially everything related to a web browser or a web page or anything like that. Saying it's an unnecessarily long process compared to Windows 10, which allows you to quickly and easily switch default emails, maps, music, photos, videos, and other web browser apps. And they mentioned that the author tested Firefox, Chrome, Opera, Vivaldi, and Brave, and only Firefox was able to set defaults without sending users to the default app section of Windows 11. And it sounds like if Firefox was able to do this, then maybe the others just need a little bit, maybe they just need a little bit of tweaking so that everyone else can do this, not just Mozilla. Now, this is, they mentioned words from the senior vice president of Firefox saying, quote, "We have been increasingly worried about the trend on Windows. Since Windows 11, users have had to take additional and since Windows 10, have had to take additional and unnecessary steps to set and retain their default browser settings," which I think a lot of people have run into that. If you try to open up links and browsers and so on and so forth, it seems like you have to set your default browser often. And if you don't set your default browser, then it will keep prompting you. And I guess the real thing that changes here is the fact that, well, you can, the real thing that changes here is the fact that you're not being asked again. And when you do finally dig through the system to get to these settings because you clicked, X instead of OK, or you didn't check mark the little "Don't ask this again" box, you have to go into the default apps. And here you can see that you have to change multiple things. Now, obviously, it does not look that confusing. There's logos and, just make that picture look like that picture. It's not that confusing, at least not for someone who's used computers quite a bit. But it does seem tedious. And it should just be something as simple as one little switch. The only way I could see this actually helpful is the fact that you get to decide if you want to open HTML files in one browser or XHTML in another browser, or this or that or the other. I don't know. I don't know many people that really need that much control. I really do think that that is the exception and not the and not something that people should really be pointing towards. Now, they're saying that Mozilla isn't alone in its concerns, and which has been highlighting for years. Microsoft has a history of doing this, and it seems that they are getting progressively worse. With every new version of Windows, it is getting harder to change defaults. They understand that the only way that they can get people to use their browser is to lock them in. Not so much the case. I actually like Windows Edge. I do not like anti-competitive practices that Microsoft has been trying to push, but I actually do like Microsoft Edge. I think it's a really good browser. Let's face it, the backend is Chromium. So if you like Chrome, there's a chance that you might just like Edge. But do I think Microsoft does these things to kind of keep people within their ecosystem and keep people using their own programs? Absolutely. Apple does it. Microsoft does it. Chrome does it on Chromebooks. And trust me, the only people that seem to take them to task is the European Union when they are looking through their antitrust files. I mean, it's pretty standard practice. It's a crappy practice, don't get me wrong, but no one should be surprised. And it sounds like they give you one shot, one opportunity to get your default browser right, and it's very easy to not get it right the first time. Now, Opera, another rival to Microsoft Edge, is also unimpressed with Microsoft, saying that it's very unfortunate when a platform vendor is trying to use a common case to improve the standing of their own product. So, they said that we would like to encourage all platform vendors to respect user choice and allow competitors on their platform. Taking away user choice is a step backwards. Absolutely. And Opera, by the way, a very good browser as well. So, and by the way, they even have a nice little GIF to kind of show what it looks like to actually change this whole process. Takes a bit. And they're saying that default app choices aren't the only issues affecting Windows 11. There's something about the taskbar widget and more. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and move on from this, but just safe to say that they're making it a bit more annoying, but to just kind of say that it's harder, that seems quite the stretch, because they do give you that prompt first. And if you pay attention to that, then I really do feel like a lot of users will not actually have this issue. But if they do, and obviously this seems to be something that if there's an open beta, they might actually change this if enough eyeballs are brought to their attention. So, they're saying that it's not long until Windows 11 ships, and competitors are very clear these changes aren't welcome. Is Microsoft really listening, though? And, of course, we'll find out when this actually ships. I really do feel like this is one of those things that has a good chance of being reverted, because it's changing, again, a use case that only a few people out of their entire user base would actually find this helpful. To be able to determine, a dozen different file extensions to all have a different browser that it can open with. Doesn't really make much sense to me, but there you go. So, that was story number 2, a little hyperbolic, but hey, it's something worth noting, and hopefully they can get those changes reverted. Let's talk about, speaking of drops in the bucket, Facebook. Every time I read about Facebook and what they're doing and, kind of the strategy that they're taking up, Facebook has banned 3,000 accounts for COVID-19 and vaccine misinformation, saying that it has removed more than 20 million individual posts since the start of the pandemic last year. That may sound like a lot, but 3,000 accounts. Remember, this is a company that boasts to have a daily active user of like 1.6 billion people. And this speaks to one of two things. Either Facebook is not taking this seriously enough and they're just not banning enough people, or a small amount of accounts really does have that big of an influence. It's pretty crazy. Now, since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, Facebook has taken a much tougher stance on health misinformation than it has in the past, saying that it has removed millions of posts for sharing misinformation. Now we know just how many accounts, groups, and pages have been banned from the platform for repeatedly breaking those rules. So it's not just once, oops, I accidentally shared the wrong link, or, I didn't really vet the link too well. No, repeated misinformation. So, Facebook shared the stat as part of its Community Standards Enforcement Report, which measures how the company enforces its rules. The number may seem low, given the vast amount of misinformation on Facebook about the pandemic and the vaccines. The company also said that more than 20 million pieces of content have been removed, more than 190 million posts have warning labels between the start of the pandemic in 2020 and this past June. So 20 million posts have been removed, and I'm sure pieces of content also includes pictures shared, posts on timelines and news feeds, and I'm sure probably comments as well. And then 190 million have warning labels. So they seem to be erring on the side of warning labels, but still, I would say, 9-1. It seems to be warning label to removing. But the relatively low number of bans, just 3,000, tracks with findings by researchers who say that just a few individuals are responsible for the vast majority of vaccine mistruths on social media, which could be the case, but I also feel like they could be more aggressive. And Facebook has always been very mediocre when it comes to fake accounts, bot accounts, or just accounts sharing, in this case, misinformation. Time and time again, it seems like they claim that, oh, we're taking action. Look at us. We just banned, 19 different accounts or 10 different pages. Not that much considering the entirety of Facebook. But they said that during a call with reporters, Facebook's VP of Content, Monica Bickert, said that the company has had to continually evolve its policies, in that it now removes 65 types of vaccine falsehoods, such as posts saying that COVID-19 shots cause magnetism. Is that one of the things? People are worried about getting the vaccine and then they turn into magnets? Wow, that's a really weird thing to get stuck on. That's funny. No, but still. They're saying that she also noted that some groups have used coded language to try to evade the company's detection, which can pose a challenge because obviously if the word fire truck is banned, then yeah, you just, replace the T with a 1 and you're good to go. Stuff like that. Facebook's handling of vaccine misinformation has been in the spotlight in recent months as government officials, including Joe Biden, have said Facebook should do more to counter mistruths about the COVID-19 vaccine. On its part, Facebook said that the vaccine hesitancy has declined by 50% in the US and that COVID-19 Information Center has reached 2 billion people. I mean, they're doing something. But as always, the main criticism that we have about Facebook is it enough? Because they may sound like large numbers, and I'm sure that Facebook is cherry picking its data to find the most impressive numbers. But, another article that we didn't really get to here was how many people, and Facebook has this information, how many people actually saw all of those, 200 million warning labeled posts, and how many people saw those 20 million posts that were removed. What is the actual viewership of these super spreader accounts of misinformation? They don't include anything like that, and hey, maybe they should. So, yep, Facebook banned 3,000 different accounts. It's a start, it's something, and you should always, congratulate them for doing something, but you gotta admit, it's not enough. How about something fun? And if you're watching the video portion, you're in for a treat. But if you're not, then you need to go check out Atlas Partners in Parkour, which is the name of a YouTube video. So check this one out. We'll have it playing in the background here. And yep, this is Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics and their robot actually doing parkour. So there you go. You have it right there. We can go ahead and start this over again. They're saying that, and really, I don't really have to say it. I've seen the video. You can see the robot running upstairs. It's jumping. It's very human-like. It's very fluid-like. There's 2 of them, and they do everything from like a beam. So, they have to, it's not just walking in a straight line. No, they actually have to move their legs to go onto the beam. They're able to do special kind of jumps where they actually use their arms to hop over an obstacle. They then jump in tandem. They even do backflips in tandem multiple times. It's really impressive. Yes, and that one's even in the weird Boston Dynamic way to make them look human. One of them even brushes his shoulders off as if to say, no big deal. And the other one cheers excitedly. So it's very impressive. And again, the thing about Boston Dynamics is that their robots are always so lifelike, so human-like. And we highly recommend that you go check out the video for yourself. They're saying that the routine took months of development, according to the company, and served as a useful test of the robot's ability to maintain their balance while switching behaviors and coordinating actions. This isn't just canned behavior. As other recent tests, Atlas now uses visuals to adapt its movement to the course. So essentially, this was partway programmed, probably a little bit, using cameras to sense where the platforms are and things like that. But I'm sure that a lot of this was hard-coded and, really, what takes us a minute to go, wow, look at that routine. Over the course of a minute, it took them, as they said, months to actually program it. Now, they said that the vault in particular has about a 50% failure rate, and there's still a slight chance of failure at each step. Even a fist pump at the end didn't go smoothly, they said. The company still has to refine movements that are limited by the very nature of the robots themselves, such as the lack of a spine and the relatively weak arm joints. Sounds like me. Now, as it stands, Atlas isn't a production robot like Spot. It's a research model meant to push the limits of robotics. And if you don't recall, I believe that Boston Dynamics was purchased recently by Hyundai. Yeah, and actually that's in the article here as well. So their videos always show off kind of the latest advancements of robots. They're very fluid. They're able to do things that no one would consider robots to do. It really is incredible. But a well-manicured and well-produced 1-minute video does not tell the whole story of where robots currently are at. Because if this was, kind of done on the fly instantly, I'm sure that, if no one else, the military alone would be drooling to be able to have their own robot military that could do this. But still, it's very cool, and again, highly recommend that you go check out the video because it is also oddly cute. Yep, Boston Dynamic robots are oddly cute. Now, so I think that for our next one, why don't we go ahead and right in the middle of the show, we'll do probably the biggest news story of the day, and it has to do with laser-powered fusion. Now, if you don't recall, nuclear power plants that obviously, generate electricity for us to use nuclear fission, which is where you take fissionable material and you split the atoms, and then of course the energy that is released, the heat, the energy released by breaking those chemical bonds is then harnessed through water, turned into steam, and then of course it is used to power turbines. That is how nuclear fission reactors work, and that is what most people are traditionally used to. Now, the next level of this, or at least the other way of it, is nuclear fusion. And fusion, as in putting two things together, is what happens in our sun, where those hydrogen molecules being slammed together and forming into oxygen molecules. Well, that itself releases a lot of energy because, you need a lot of energy to push them together, and then it releases even more energy when they finally, kind of combine. And we can see the evidence of how powerful that is by looking at, again, our own solar system. The fact that most everything in our solar system is powered by this one giant fusion reactor. So what do humans do? Humans said, we need to be able to do that ourselves. And hopefully not like Doc Ock from Spider-Man, we don't almost blow up all of New York City. Instead, we get infinite electricity because the material used in this is hydrogen, literally the most abundant resource in the universe, and you produce oxygen, which is not a bad thing. So there's this, the true breakthrough of this, if this were to actually work, is unlimited electricity, pretty much. Obviously, you would have issues of storing or you would have to build these things in a mass scale, but every one that you produce would be able to generate its own electricity, and that's really cool, because they're even working on kind of downscaling these, and you can have a full-blown power plant, in the back of a truck. They really are that exciting, but I digress. Let's find out what happened today. They're saying that scientists have edged closer to a fusion energy system that doesn't lean on magnetic field-based tokamak reactors or twisty stellarators. Science reports that a team at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory has achieved a breakthrough in laser-powered fusion energy by coming much closer to ignition or a blast that produces an excess of energy, which is always important. You need to be able to pull more energy out than you put in. That's the exciting part. The researchers sparked the event with a 20 nanosecond burst from 192 different laser beams. it's kind of cool that, the future is like, oh, how does this work? And they're just like, lasers. We'll figure out how to work. Just lasers and more lasers. 192 different high-powered lasers. All of them aimed at a tiny sphere full of hydrogen isotopes, deuterium, and tritium. By the way, again, I'm already over my head. I don't even know what these elements are. Obviously, I know what hydrogen isotopes are. I have no idea what deuterium and tritium are, but itself housed in a small gold cylinder. The gold, by the way, just for looks, I'm sure. There's probably no scientific reason for it. It is simply to make it look dope. Now, the laser shot vaporizes the gold. Oh, I stand corrected. Vaporizes the gold, producing X-rays that implode the capsule and creates fusion. The experiment produced 70% ignition, or 1.35 megajoules of the 1.9 megajoules from the laser. That's well short of what you need for fusion energy, but 8 times more powerful than the lab had managed before. It will take a while for the research unit to further refine the process and achieve full ignition. There's also a large gap between achieving ignition and making a practical fusion power system, saying that you'd need to produce these fusion blasts at a rate near 10 per second to collect energy from the resulting neutrons. The test does show that the laser-based fusion is a much more realistic prospect than first thought, though. If there's further progress, the technique could produce effectively unlimited energy that could solve the electrical grid's capacity issues while remaining clean and safe. Yep, so it's very clear to see why they're pursuing this. Even though it's not simple, it's very difficult, and it's still very, very experimental, but it makes all the sense in the world to have unlimited clean energy that that you could produce anywhere. So it's worth a shot. I still feel like in just judging by what they have here, being able to produce one instance of the conditions you need to make fusion is cool. Again, it shows. It shows progress in the right direction. But to be able to produce 10 of those repeatedly and then harness that energy and make sure not everything breaks down, that seems much further off. And that's where tokamak is getting much better. There was just the Chinese tokamak that broke records in sustaining a plasma flow for, it was like 2 minutes or something like that. It was a very, very long time in terms of other fusion plasma generation. So there's progress on all sides, but regardless of how you look at it, we are still decades away. If not just nowhere near it, we're still decades away of anything being near feasible. So until then, still using the old-fashioned liquid dinosaurs. So, okay. How about, we won't cover it from here, but we'll cover it from here. Ars Technica. T-Mobile, are you a user? Well, if you are, then you might want to pay attention. They're saying that hackers they breached T-Mobile and they stole personal data of 49 million accounts. Pretty crazy stuff. They're saying that PII includes first and last names. So personal information includes first and last names, dates of birth, social security numbers, and driver's license numbers. So a lot going on there. T-Mobile on Wednesday said criminals obtained the personal information of almost 49 million current and million current, former, or prospective customers. So this is pretty much the whole thing in the latest mega hack of its servers. The haul includes customers' first and last names, dates of birth, social security number, driver's license, ID information for about 7.8 million current, post-paid accounts, meaning accounts that are billed at the end of each billing cycle. The unknown hackers obtained the same data from more than 40 million records belonging to former or prospective customers who had previously applied for credit with T-Mobile. That's a lot of customers. 49 million is nothing to sneeze at. That's big. Now, in response, let's go ahead and talk about this. Let's see. Let's see if they said how this was able to happen. They said that, so the carrier said none of the hacked data included customer financial information, credit card or debit card information, or other payment information. So it's not stuff that you can't, it's not stuff that you can change, like, get a new debit card or, kind of have your bank monitor it. No, it's your social security number, which is way easier to change, right? It's your first and last name. It's your email address. It's all those, pesky little things. At least it's not your debit card. So they're saying that in response, T-Mobile said that they are immediately offering 2 years of free identity protection through McAfee's ID theft protection service, which not the biggest fan of McAfee, but it's something. They're recommending that all T-Mobile post-paid customers proactively change their PIN by going through the account, blah, blah, blah. Offering an extra step to protect your mobile account with our account takeover protection for post-paid customers, which makes it harder for customers to be fraudulently ported out and stolen. I imagine that is more to the effect of a two-factor authentication process that they're going to start implementing. And of course, publishing a unique webpage later on Wednesday for one-stop information and solutions to help customers take steps to further protect themselves. But yeah, not a good look either way. Now, they said that word of the breach first surfaced over the weekend when someone using the Twitter account Undoxed and someone on a cybercrime forum advertising the availability of millions of what they claimed were never before published records. A report from Motherboard confirmed that the data matched T-Mobile customers. And Motherboard said that the person selling the data claimed that there were 100 million records available. So, does that mean that some of them were just first and last names, some of them were just email addresses, or, what exactly does 100 million records mean? Now, it's not known if anyone has actually purchased the data, but it's not unusual for data stolen in breaches to eventually be published online, so it's available for anyone who wants to find it. The availability of free credit monitoring is better than nothing, but more meaningful steps would be important. Even with such protections, SIM swapping remains a big enough risk that people should not link important accounts to their phone numbers whenever possible. Yes and no. I do feel like two-factor authentication is one of the best ways to keep the average person safe. Due to this hack, SIM spoofing got a little bit easier, but it's not like they were able to SIM swap anyone on this list. No, they're able to maybe impersonate someone and say, "Hey, T-Mobile, I am actually Ben," even though I'm not, and able to get their accounts like that. Who knows? But yeah, it's something to definitely consider. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on here for our next story. And again, if you're a T-Mobile user, especially those who use that service, what was that postpaid account, then you definitely need to kind of pay attention. This one gets into an ethical gray area when it comes to the ability for reporters to find and obtain information. Paying sources is one thing. I guess that's been done for a long time, for leakers and their stories and things like that. But it's a completely different thing to pay for stolen data and then publish that data. Most places would never touch that with a 20-foot pole. but it looks like a particular 9to5 Mac writer didn't have as many ethical concerns as I think most writers do, saying that a reporter for 9to5 Mac paid a source in exchange for data extracted from a stolen iPhone prototype. And they said that they paid around $500 in Bitcoin in exchange for leaked data from the company in 2018. In 2018, Guilherme Rambo wrote an article billed as an exclusive look at some of the new features at the then upcoming iPad Pro. In the story, he wrote that the sources familiar with the development of the new 2018 iPad Pro have offered additional details about the device, its features, and more. But his source was actually Andre Shumaiko, there you go, who for years has been involved in the so-called Apple internal community, a loosely defined group of Apple enthusiasts who trade leaked information, data, and stolen iPhone prototypes. The article revealed that Apple would launch 2 iPads with only Wi-Fi and 2 with LTE connectivity, and the type of processor the new iPad would have, details about the screen, and the fact that it would have a USB-C port instead of a traditional Lightning port. They told Motherboard that the article was based on data extracted from an iPhone XR prototype, which he obtained from a collector. Clearly, Apple would like to keep their stuff under wraps, but there's so many enthusiasts out there, and people will pay top dollar to get their hands on this. I can see how it would, this kind of thing happen. Now, they said that, the writer actually, the writer sent him two payments of Bitcoin, which at the time was worth about $500, nowadays about $3,600, in exchange for the data, which contained references to the upcoming iPad Pro feature, and they shared records of the 2 transactions. Rambo told Motherboard that this is the only time he remembers paying anyone for leaked data, and that his superiors at 9to5 Mac were not informed of the payment. Saying 9to5 didn't know about this taking place, he said in an online chat. However, Rambo said that 9to5's policy is to never pay sources. Which, from an objective standpoint, the moment you start paying people for information and saying, this is my source, you kind of taint that source. Are they really telling you the truth, or are they telling you what you want to hear because there's money exchanging hands? That's not exactly the best way to go about obtaining sources for stories. They're saying that they then added that Rambo had decided to take down any post which was based on the developer build in question. He stopped covering leaks in 2019 for 9to5 Mac, but will continue to do his unrelated Apple developer podcast on our network. Rambo is a stand-up guy who has the support of the 9to5 Mac team. So with that being said, and that was kind of their stance initially. On Tuesday, though, yesterday, they updated the story, removing its content and replacing it with a disclaimer saying, "Update: this post has been removed due to the sourcing policies at 9to5 Mac. At the time the story was published, it was big news in the world of Apple observers. The article was referenced in subsequent pieces in pretty much anywhere that covers Apple-based products." Rambo told Motherboard that he did not consider whether the data he was paying for could be considered stolen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are paying in Bitcoin for data that no one else has, for a fact, like you cover this on a daily basis, you are on the cutting edge of reporting the latest gossip, rumors, and leaks. That no one else has this information. It's stolen. Yeah, so he said that he did not consider whether or not it was stolen. That seems like such a stretch. Like someone who has devoted his entire career to this whole thing, Yeah, most likely he knew it was stolen, saying that, quote, "I didn't think of it that way. I guess I didn't realize back then that this could be the case. In my mind, what had happened was that this was a unit that went to some place to be destroyed and wasn't properly destroyed, which is now the prototype that people always talk about. Now I know better, but back then I guess I didn't. I thought it was like this. It was supposed to have been destroyed, but somehow it wasn't." Yeah, that's... I don't know, that whole, like, I get wanting to be the, kind of the first to break the story, but man. So last year, the Shumeko turned into a mole for Apple, as he put it, and started feeding information to the company on people in that community, as well as journalists such as Rambo and their sources. Apple did not respond to a request for comment, as I doubt that they would, and the Vice and Motherboard here, as they kind of write here, saying that paying sources for information is generally frowned upon in the world of journalism. The Society of Professional Journalists in the U.S. writes in its ethics code that journalists should be wary of sources offering information for favors or money. Do not pay for access to news, the code reads. So essentially, if, and it's like I said at the beginning, if you have to pay someone to give you information, you are then putting the whole thing into question. Are they paying? I'm sorry, is the information that they're giving you information that you just want to hear, or is that actually the information that they wanted to tell you in the first place? Because now there's money on the line. It's very, very questionable, very dubious. And obviously someone who is a long-time, kind of professional journalist, they should have been more wary about this. So everyone, one moment. So I think that's, what time is it? Yeah, we have time for just one more story if we do this right. How about... Okay, this one should be pretty quick. Again, old technology phasing out for new technology. A lot of people are now familiar with chips on debit cards, credit cards, so on and so forth, which are generally seen to be much safer than magnetic strips. Well, by 2033, none of Mastercard's debit or credit cards will have a magnetic strip. So they're giving themselves a very flexible timeline here. They will, with banks in many regions, including Europe, they're going to start issuing the stripless cards from 2024. Which, of course, begs the next question. If the cards don't have a magnetic strip, they only have the chip, then what's the point of the whole card? Maybe they could just give you just the little chip part. That seems pretty cool. And then, of course, the question becomes, well, if the chip can be shrunk down a little bit, why not? And then the question becomes, well, if the chip is this small and we have to carry it with us whenever we go out anyways, can I just get this embedded into my wrist? That would be so convenient. Maybe one day we'll be walking around with chips on our wrist. But hey, until that day, the UK moved to chip and pin for all cards in 2006, but in the US, some magnetic strip systems are still in use. I've had to use them myself. Not every card issued has a chip embedded in the card. And I think that over the past 10 years, 15 years, it has definitely gotten to the point where anyone who needed to update their payment system, they have that mix of both, but generally, if you have a chip, most places will use the chip. Only a couple have I found actually go about doing this whole, the chip reader doesn't work, please swipe your card. Not many places actually do that. Now, they're saying that the magnetic strip began life in the 1960s as an IBM project to create identity cards for CIA staff. I had no idea. They said that one of its engineers had the idea of sticking information encoded on a strip of magnetic tape to a plastic card, but was struggling to join the two together. It was his wife who hit upon the idea of using heat to join tape to the card, initially with the iron she was using at the time. But the pandemic, the company says, has highlighted the appetite for different ways to pay, and that includes things like Apple Pay and, of course, the chip being more secure yeah, it's just contactless payments, which can be made using card or smartphone, increased by more than 1 billion in the first quarter of 2021 compared to the same time last year. I won't lie. I got my first card that could do NFC. It has the little signal broadcasting icon there. And to be able to just tap payment systems or payment portals, either at gas stations or just generally pay terminals, that is the most futuristic and cool thing ever. Like, forget chips. That whole NFC thing that they're able to bake directly into the card with no obvious sign of battery power or anything like that, that stuff is cool. And I could totally see how that is going to officially end the magnetic strip cards as we know it. So, yep, their Mastercard has set themselves a timeline, and now it's just up to them to stick to it. But hey, 10 years, not bad. And for being around for the better part of like 70 years, very impressive for a technology to be used that often. So everyone, unfortunately, the music. The music and that made my whole system kind of freeze. But yeah, no, we should be good. So yeah, the music is playing, and some of the stories we did not get to include the ever controversial Google following in Apple's footsteps and not including a charger in the box. It will still include a cable, but it will not have the power brick that turns AC into the USB-C. So it won't have that adapter included. Other ones include the fact that cryptocurrency is pushing legislation in front of Congress, Apple to defend its anti-child abuse imagery tech, and more. So everyone, we're just flat out of time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. You too for it. Everyone out there, have a good one. Be safe. Catch you here tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Everyone, have a good one. See you next time. Bye-bye.